Okay, here we go. Florus, Epitome of History, Book 2, Chapter 22. Noricus, dative or ablative for a people, a proper noun, Enemos Darben Alpes. So this is the Alps, gave to the Norici, is that their name? Noricans, Enemos. Enema with an A is more like a breath or spirit. With the US, it's more of like heart and courage. It's plural, so the Alps gave courage to these people. Quasi as if, in roops and neves, in the crags, the roops are like rocky crags and the neves are snow. Bellum, we've got another difference in the manuscripts or wherever these are, there's supposed to be a non there. Okay, bellum, which is war, a neuter, it was not posset, not able to ascend or climb up to them. So these people were given courage because they didn't think war was able to climb as high as into their rocky crags and the snows. Said, omnes, said, so, but all, Ilius Cardinus, demonstrative pronoun, and a third declension, populace, but so it looks like, but all these people of this, Ilius would be of this, Cardinus. Cardo is actually hinge, but it's has a broader use, as in for this region, or this cardinal region. So all these people of this region or area, the Brunos and the Orkenos and the Vindalicos, who are called the what are they called? The Bruni, the Orkeni, and the Vindalici. Per Provignum suum, this would be Caesar's Provignum, this is his stepson. Claudius Drusum, per Pacovit. Pacify comes from this, and per just again goes in front, meaning he thoroughly tamed them, so he'd tame them. Quae fuerit, something which was Alpinarum gentium ferocitas, so the ferocity which was of the Alpine gentium, of the Alpine races. Facilies, probably going to take a infinitive. It is easy, vel. I think this vel would be adverbial, so it means for an example, not either or. Here's our infinitive, ostore per mullies. Per mullia means through the women. So it is easily, there's an example of even of this, of how this is ostore, shown through the women. We're talking about the ferocity of these people. Quae which, these females, plural, deficientibus tellus, so when the ablative absolute, when the tellus, the missiles or spears that were thrown were deficient, so they were ineffective, they'd thrown these, they didn't work. Infantes suos, they're infants. Afflictos, okay, that's the past passive going with that. So, humai, that's used for the ground. So they afflicted their infants on the ground, so they struck their infants on the ground. In ora militum adversa miserum. So miserum's the final verb. So they sent them in ora, in with the accusative, towards or into the faces of the military, of the, these would be Caesar's people. Adversa, that just means towards them, against them. Okay. Okay, 23, the Illyrian War. First one was the Norican War. These Illyrians, quoque also, sub alpibus, sub with the ablative, so it means right up under. Agunt, they conducted themselves or lived their lives up under the Alpines, Alps or whatever they're called. Imasque, and the Imus Vals, Imus means the bottom of, so bottom of the valleys or something like that, the deep valleys, Iarum of them. Et quaedam, and certain something, quasi as if claustras custodian. So they were custodians or they were on guard or something. Over the, I'm guessing this is the bottom of the valleys, and certain as if claustras. Claustras are blockages or something that's closed off as a barrier. I think we've got some difference in the text again. Abruptus. Yeah, which would make this an ablative absolute. So abruptus torrentibus implicata. So I guess the claustras are implicated. So there were these blockages or barriers which were wound up. Certain of these abruptive torrentibus. If it's the bottom of a valley, these torrents could be from rivers or something. Is that what they're doing? So, and abruptus means it's taken away things, and so all up, these Illyricans living their life up under the Alps, and they were custodians watching out over their own valleys, and there were these claustras, these blockages or obstacles or barriers or something. It looks like these torrents also are helping guard against Caesar's men. Now, I did have a daily dictionary. So, in Hos, with the Accusio, so towards these, into these people, an expedition, Ipsi himself, Caesar himself, assumes it, took up an expedition against these himself. Fieri qui pontes imperavit. So he ordered Fieri to be built bridges. So here's our daily dictionary. I'll go back to the cardo, which is a hinge. Pole's axis is usually called a lot, but we see here it's also used for a crisis, an area. So region's an area. What's this? Top 1,000 words. So if you don't know it, you're missing out. Okay, so I'll scroll a bit. Caesar's ordered them to build bridges. Hic here et aquis et hosti turbantibus et a correlative. So both with water and by the enemy turbantibus. So that turbantibus is a confusion, and I'd say that confusion's more going with aquis, but it's plural. So by these disturbances of with water and the enemy, a cunctanti. This is a present passive from the NT. We can see there. To add a scensum militari, so to a hesitating soldier, a cunctanti militari, to a scensum, this is probably to climb up onto this ponte, the bridge. The scutum, which is a shield, de menu rapuited. So that's a perfect, so Caesar here in the first person, he has seized the scutum, the shield, from the hand of the cunctanti militari, which would be why there's the I of genitive there. Et VM primus. So again, primus, he's the first, he's the nominative. To ingressos, past passive, the VM on this way, the road across the bridge. So Caesar sees the way this shield from the hesitating soldier who was hesitating to add sensum to climb on the ship, on the bridges actually, which are probably pontoons or something, and he was the first to enter this crossing. Tum, then, agmine secuto, ablative absolute, with his column of men following, the agmine is secuto following. Cum sublatus, looks like when with a verb here. When sublatus multitude pons sakis, so the pons is the bridge. When the bridge multitude, by the amount of men, sakised, it had fell down, sublatus, probably something to do with the weight of these multitude. Sorcius, this is Caesar is wounded, manibus and cruribus, in his manibus, which are his hands or arms, and his cruribus, which are his legs. Speciosa, so he became more of a sight, sanguine by the blood, and ipso pericula, and the danger itself. Augustio, if you know what august means, it's more of a regal bearing. So we've got a lot of these IUS, IORs going on here. And terga, which is the rear or behind, hostium of the enemy, praecidit. So he from the T there, he chopped down the back of the enemy. So he was wounded crossing the bridge. The bridge collapsed by the weight of the multitude. He was wounded on his hands and legs, and he had a disappearance of blood, and his own danger made him more august as he cut down the rear of the enemy. And then chapter 24. Okay, Pannoni. The Pannonians, duobus acrobus fluvius, with two acrobus fluvis, which are rivers, two rivers. Acra means keen, sharp, eager, probably energetic, so it's fast-moving rivers, guessing. Dravo Savoque, this would be their names, the Drav and the Save. Should be pretty simple. Valantor. This means it acts as a natural rampart, basically, or a protection. Populati, having ravished the Proximos, which would be their neighbours. Intraripes se recipabant. They would recipabant say themselves. They would retreat themselves or take themselves intraripes between these riverbanks. In hos, into these, towards these. Domandos, this is the what do we call them? The gerundive with hos. So for the demandos, for domesticating them or for beating them, Caesar missided, he sent Vinius. Casei sunt, that's the plural form, they were cut down in utrusque fluminibus, both sides of the rivers, or on both rivers. Arma victorum, the arms of the defeated, or those who have been evicted, those who have been beaten. Non ex more bello, not from the custom of war. Ex more is the your customs, your habits. Were not cremata armor, that was burnt up, cremated. Said, but rupta sunt, so the armors were rupted, they were ripped up or rent apart and destroyed. Et and in profluentum, into the flowing, literally it means data they were given. So, and they were sent into the profluentum, the running river, I'm guessing. But so that nomen Caesar, the name of Caesar, eos qui, to those who, eos qui, resist the banting, those who are resisting, sic thus nuntiatur would be announced to them. So I'm guessing they were downstream and all this ripped up armour and crap floating down the stream would scare them and it would be announced to them. Okay, 25 of Book 2. The Dalmatians. I wonder if there was 101 of them. Plerumque. It's the adverb, means generally or mostly. Sub, whatever the hell that is, agament. Their life, this is supposed to be Silvis. So, probably just misspelling Silvis. Might even put a V there. Okay, so under the woods basically means, but you'd say they lived in the woods. As though generally the Dalmatians were conducting their lives in the woods. Hos, these, yeah, and predam, after some time, or usually it means long ago. Marcius Consul, these are in apposition, so the Consul Marcius, we've got another bloody change here. Incensa, which would mean burning. Incensa, an herb. So, okay, so with the city having been burnt, Delmio, I'd say these ablative absolute there. So having burned down the city of Delminius, is that what it's called? Delminium, maybe? Quasi as if the trunk of verit, as if he had chopped it down, or as if he had beaten them by slaughter. Posterior afterwards, Asinus Polio, so this is another guy. Gregibus armibus agris multiverat. So with their flocks and their arms and their fields, multiverat. This is when you pay a usually when you pay a fine for doing something. So he's punished these people by taking away their flocks and their arms and their fields. Hic, this would be Asinius Polo. He secundus orator. Secundus means second or favourable. So he's probably the second best orator. Said Augustus, but Augustus mandated to Vibio, which would take this form, is that his name? Vibius? This task of per dominandos, which is another gerundive, of thoroughly domesticating these people, or of taming them. Qui, who, the Epherum genus, this just means feral or wild genus, which is a race. Vodere terras cogit, so he forced them, he cogitum, taking the infinitive to dig terras in the ground. Orumque, and gold, Venus veins, repergere, so he's producing gold from veins here. So if we take all that, did I leave anything out? Oh yeah, I left that undi in latrocino promptissimo, I think. So these people generally lived in the woods, undi from where? In latrocina, in the banditry, promptissimi. This is superlative. They were most ready at hand to be turned to banditry. Hos, these people again, who down here are per dominandost, so these people are tamed. So Marcus the consul, he burnt their city, Delminium, as if he had just wiped them out. Posterior afterwards, as in screen, he punished them by their flocks and their arms in the fields. He was the second best orator, and Augustus mandated the rest of dominating them to Vibius, who forced these wild race to dig gold from veins in the terrace in the ground. Okay, quad. It's probably a which going with the aurum, which is a neuter. Which alioquin, which otherwise or in general, is a gens omnium, the race of all of them, cupidissima. There's a difference in text. We also have stupidissima, which are the most stupidest race versus the most desirous of race. Eo studio, with such zeal. Now remember, fodere is to dig it, repurgere is reprocessing, so they probably melted it after they dug it out. With such zeal, ea diligence and querent, this is a form of querenting. They sorted out with such zeal and ea diligence and such diligence, ut is our purpose, so that illud in usus suis erure videretur. Videretur means it seemed that they were erurang, overturning it, digging it up for suis users, for their own use. Iliud, this is a neuter again, so it's probably the gold. So this gold, they seem to be digging it up for their own use. Okay, we're nearly done. We've got another one. 26. So we've got another. This has Moeni and we have Moesi. So don't think it really matters unless you know who these people are. Quam ferri. Ferri tuli latus means how to bear it or to relate it. So quam would just mean how should relate. Quam trucis ferret. How truculent, again, that's another word for ferocious. Furent these people were, of these Moesians, I think we'd call them in English. How ipsorum etiam barbare barbarium horribile dictu est. So horribile dictu est is one of these fourth supine things. It's horrible in the saying, it's horrible to tell about. Actually, that's probably, could be Ferri again. Savage and truculent, and how even they were the most barbarous of barbarians. It's horrible to say. So this would come from an adjective, I think. So how wild, with this I and this I going with this, so it's not to relate, it's not some sort of infinitive or anything. So basically it's horrible to say that these were wild and savage and they were the barbarians of the barbarianist. Unus, one, ducum, genitive plural, one of the leaders, anti-acim, before the battle lines, postulato silentio, with a silence demanded, ablative absolute, qui, who, vos, you, estis, who are you, who are you, inquidity said. The responsum invicem, the response in turn, Romani gentium domini, Romans, masters, domini, gentium, genitive of the world, Romans, masters of the world. Et illi, and he, the former, he inquitted, he said, ita fiat, thus it should be, or so it will be. See, if, nos viceritis, if you defeat us, if you beat us. Accepted omen Marcus Crassus. Marcus Crassus accepted or received this omen. He took it as an omen. Illi, the former, the Moesi, start him immediately, anti-acim, still before the battle line, immolato equo, ablative absolute, with a horse immolated or sacrificed, concepere, they took, con together, a votum, which is a vow or a wish, probably a vow, ut, that, caesorum extus ducum, we've got the ablative here, the entrails, chaosum of the cut down ducum leaders, so this would be the Roman leaders who cut down their entrails, et correlatives, both, they would literant, they would sacrifice, and vescerantur. Vescor is a deponent verb that means to feed on, it takes the ablative excess. So they said they would sacrifice and feast upon the entrails of the cut down in the slaughter, the leaders of the Romans. Dios Odisse crederem. I believe, taking the infinitive, I believe the gods Odyssey, they had heard this. Nec turba sustinere poterunt, for neither were poterunt, they able, sustinere, the infinitive, to sustain or withstand the turbas, the horns blowing. Non minimum terrors, not a minimum amount of terror, incussid, struck, barbarians, the barbarians. Comicus, we've got a strange name here, we also have some other name for him. Cornelius, maybe. Centurion, who was satis barbaria, satisfactorily of a barbarian nature. The centurion, and efficacus tamen apud tales homines stolidatus, another word for stupid. Qui foculum gerens super cassidem, agitatum moto corporis, flamen velut ardenti capite funditabat. So I better put that in English. Tamen, nevertheless, apud tales homines stolidatus, amongst such stupid men, he efficated it, he made it happen. Which he had a foculum, which is a little pan basically. Gerens, he was bearing it or wearing it. Super cassidum, above his plumed helmet. A cassis is this. So he had a fire pan above his plumed helmet. Agitatum, so this cassidum is agitatum. It's agitated by the motion corporis of his body. Velut, as if a flame and ardenti head, as if he had a flaming, burning head, thunderbat, which is pouring out everywhere.